Hi all. Scott here, slapping as usual. I was just thinking about something. Like my favorite zombie movie ever, Return of the Living Dead. And I love me some Romero and other zombie flicks and zombie related flicks. But the returns take the cake and like gruesomeness and awesomeness. So the first one, a lot of people think like the third one is like the culmination of the Return series, but I'm more of like the first one. I don't have anything against the other ones, but the first one is like, it's like this perfect combination of like horror and slapstick comedy that kind of like floats underneath the surface of stuff. But it's a true horror movie, especially with like zombies rising up from the ground even, and they're indestructible. You can't just shoot the head. And it's a military fuck up with like these canisters that have been stored in this mortuary. It's a warehouse next to that type of thing. So they have the canisters in there and they've been sitting there for a minute, and the army doesn't know where they're at. Trioxin something or other. Man, let's not release that ever. Because it doesn't just turn you into a zombie, but it pulls them up out of the ground. So that separates it from the pack of other zombie movies. Because most of the other ones are like, even if they run around, like they're just running around and they're containable in some way. But these things are like nothing safe anywhere because undead are like coming back to life. So good job, US military, army guys. And it's a reoccurring theme in the rest of them, where the army like fucked up on like this weird tiny little level and they pay the consequences. They meaning humanity. So the actors and actresses in that were awesome. This is coming from the 80s, and it was coming from a time where there wasn't a lot of restraint. Okay, so there's nudity, full frontal. You know it's from the 80s. And what period of the 80s, because of like the punk rock stuff going on there, and it was so awesome, and it's still awesome to this day. The visual effects were outstanding, still are, and some of them are like hard to look at. That's how good they are. When it comes to like zombie flicks, like a lot of them are like loot based, where the zombies really aren't that much of a threat versus the rest of humanity. That's not the case in here. You don't have time for that shit, man. Shit's so bad that the army's gonna like nuke cities and release more of the I don't know what it's called, trioxin, whatever. But it's so awesome, so sick. And all of the zombies in that are unique looking and foul, and it's like you feel like overwhelmed. If you look like at Romero's Night of the Living Dead, those zombies are like just lumbering around like, I'm trying to get you. These ones, they're gonna get you. They're cunning, smart. They work together. They work in packs. And the good news is they don't eat all of your body. They just want your brains. You know, some bad news in there too. And they'll let you know, they'll talk about what they want to do. And there's like super duper bad news when a zombie's captured and she's being interrogated and she's talking. She's letting you know, I can feel myself rot. And the corner guy is like, it hurts to be dead. I don't know what's worse, that or the Walking Dead mythos where no matter what, you turn into a zombie. But this one is saying like, no matter what you turn into, it's gonna suck, it's gonna hurt. But the whole brains thing kind of started there. It may have started earlier, I might be off on that one, but let me know if I'm wrong. Return of the Living Dead, the original one. So my favorite zombie movie ever is that one. And it shouldn't work for me because I'm not a fan of too much comedy in my horror. Too much, and then I'm like, what's the point? Why don't we slap in a comedy or something? Not to that level, but see what I'm saying there? I want my horror scary and disturbing and creepy and alarming. The zombies in Return of the Living Dead run, and they are voracious runners. So other movies like the 28 Days Later or whatever, I don't want to go there if they're like ripping that off, but they're not the first running like infected or whatever you want to call them. And it wouldn't matter either because those would not compete. These things would like gobble you up. They're indestructible. The visual effects in that were incredible. And, you don't necessarily have like all the money in the world to get the thing done. So there's some stuff in the movie, if you look closely, you can see like what the director was like going through a little bit. There's like a scene with like the military guy and his wife in his house. Well, when they had that house, this is like in the deleted scenes. It's nothing like new, I'm telling you here. But it was so hot on there, they had to like glue like some stuff together, and it was so hot that the glue was like melting. And you could see that just a little bit before they cut away. Something directors got to deal with. And like, I mean, that could have been like devastating, where you don't have that entire scene at all type of stuff. But the other ones in the series feature, like, okay, the second one features, it's kind of like, Evil Dead, where the next movie is like a recreation of the first with the same characters. They did that with the sequel of Return of the Living Dead 2. So, same actors, similar relationships, but different across the board, ultimately. I think that's kind of cool that you could do that, but I don't agree where people think the third one is the best one in the series. The second one was all right. The third one was just kind of like, you're starting to get into like torture porn. starting to get into that. I mean, the 80s like started all of that, but you're starting to get out of the 80s. But this is like staying on the level. So the first one, like, set a bunch of standards. Not necessarily for like grotesqueness, but maybe that and like the whole 80s thing, or like nudity, soft porn, everything that was going on then. You know, you got Stephen King doing his thing, other great masters of horror, John Carpenter doing his thing. They made that movie after some of Romero's flicks. So it was all there, people ripping each other off or whatever. But at the end of the day, like the total package, if I had to pick a zombie movie, it's gonna be Return of the Living Dead. And it shouldn't be because of the humor. Not that the humor sucked or anything, but if I want horror, I want horror. I don't need to be relieved with any silly nonsense. But everything in that worked for whatever reason with all the slapstick comedy. You can see it everywhere in there. But yeah, man, there's probably a lot more I could cover on Return of the Living Dead. From the director to the producer to all of this or that. But I do think it is like the most outstanding zombie movie ever. The characters in that, like across the board, like are all dynamic. You haven't seen that, you gotta check that out, man. Return of the Living Dead. It's Scott slapping as usual.